So this is part two of my earlier post, which I just tried with my live feed. But I guess I'm in a bad place, bad reception. But I'm just going to pick off where I left off. The racial divide and the reason for it, the lack of understanding and the lack for willingness for people to accept a system that it's been broken. So, and here's what it comes down to in America. Since the beginning, white folks have been in power and running things. It's no secret. That's the way it happened. Throughout time, the struggle for equality for everyone else has been a constant struggle, whether you were Irish American, Jewish American, Jamaican American, whatever. It just seems like, and the fact is that African Americans we are the last group to really gain the same sense of entitlements that everyone else had. And that's the truth, So even though our contributions have been monumental in every single facet of America, you can literally say that America was built on the backs of black people. And it was. So our education system is incorrect. We don't celebrate history, all the contributions that black people have made in this country, in spite of slavery, in spite of everything else, the torture, the laws being actually against people of color. Like I said, in the 60s, a lot of us were around that time shortly after. Still couldn't go and have a drink of water at the same fountain, which is crazy, when you think about that. But so I try to break down the dichotomy of the whole racial divide in the country little by little as we talk about it. And I hope you all listen. I hope you all hear what I'm saying, and I hope you take it to heart, because people are getting mad about the fact that, again, we had Black Santa Claus in the mall. So what? Next will be black leprechauns. Hope so. If you have a whole country full of different folks and you want everybody to be American, America is just not white picket fences and white skin and plain mashed potatoes. It just ain't, as we call it, Wonder Bread. It just ain't just plain Wonder Bread. There's many different flavors in this country. There's many different spices. There's many, many different contributions all over the world. And to be American really is to be all those things. All those things. And you know what's funny? The true Americans, the indigenous people, we don't see none of that incorporated, none of their history incorporated into our history at all, or our textbooks. Just like the black Americans, African Americans, enslaved people. No incorporation on a major scale. If you read any history book in America, you would think the only people that have made significant contributions are Europeans, the settlers who came here, and the white folks who came after them. No one else did anything. That's what you get when you read our history books. That's the sense that you get. So you get to see that the white folks have been doing things are elevated here. Whether you believe that or not and really realize that, if you're reading about one group of people that's doing all these other things up here, and everyone else, people of color, they're just here. What do you think that does to the people who are up here and being represented by that? Their self-esteem and their sense of accountability, their sense of belonging is raised way up here. These people down here, not so much. Not so much. So how do you change that? You educate your society. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, and somebody let me know, isn't a society where just about everybody is living life to their fullest potential and being productive as they can and creative as they know how to be, not only have the access, but the equity to be able to do so, the opportunity to be able to do so, where the laws are not made so that it holds one group down while the other one's just to succeed, and that the economic picture is more equal to everybody else, has an opportunity to pursue happiness in their own way. That's what America's supposed to be, as far as the Constitution states. But the Constitution wasn't written for everybody. It definitely was not written for people of color. You have to start there, after the enslaved people. America made a constitution that denied the same rights to people of color and women for the most part. So who's that leave in charge? That leaves white men in charge, white wealthy men that were landowners, because you had to be a landowner. Why would you make such laws? Because that is a racist system that discriminates on people's religion, background, how they look, where they come from, and that says that other group is better. And if that system goes on for hundreds of years, which it has done, it becomes everyday life for some people. It actually becomes everyday life for everybody. The people that were not being able to take advantage of it, again, you're back down here, and everybody else's benefits from it are up here. That's how we got to where we're at today. And of course, I'm fast forwarding through a lot, but I wanted to specifically come back to the space program. And you wonder why I'm talking about that. Well, just like the first time we went to the moon, it was a big deal. And the more we start going to the moon and in space, putting telescopes and space shuttles on a regular, it's common knowledge now. Everybody's used to it. At least we're used to hearing that. And that's what has to happen in our society. People of color, different nationalities need to be in these positions of power more often, more frequent, so we can get used to that. And why would you oppose that? If it's going to make everyone else feel better about themselves and a nation as a whole, instead of saying, you're American, do what I tell you to do and everything will be fine. Well, that don't work for me. It don't work. So yeah, Barack Obama's first African American president was momentous, a truly historical event. I hope there's another 100 Barack Obamas, or Michelle Obamas, or Hillary Clintons, or Jill Stein, or who else? Your daughter, But these three women, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, worked on the space program, sending the first man to the moon. 3 black female mathematicians who figured out the code and the launch paths and everything else better than anybody else could. Here it is, 2016, and I'm just learning about them. Why would you share that information? Why wouldn't you? Because, again, if you share this information and people who look like that start to gain confidence and therefore buck against your system that you're better than they are. So any of you all in America who still think that you're not racist, you probably aren't. You're probably good-hearted people. But the system that you're living in teaches you and taught you and your grandfather and your father and everyone else that you're better than everybody else. So you don't have to give thought to anything like the rest of us people of color do, especially with the new immigrants that are moving in. And I got news for you. America, you better start adapting to the fact that in the very near future, America is going to look somewhere a version of this. And I know that frightens a lot of you. And the fight to hold on to heritage and all that stuff is there for some of you extremists. But without confidence, I'm sure you're going to be wiped out. And I'm sure that scares you. I'm certain that's a part of why you see this attack on black men in America. Because when you start to dehumanize people and cut off their leaders, that's why back in the enslaved people, the first thing they did when they took the Africans, captured Africans, they took them to islands in the Spice Islands, the Caribbean islands. They took the biggest, baddest men and they just emasculated them, raped them in front of the village, tortured them and everything else. Because if you break the spirit of the biggest, baddest dude in the block, no one else is going to give you any problem. That's how it all starts. And that ties into the fact that today, you see, hey, anytime you see a strong man a black man out in the neighborhood, it's a threat to some people. And this is kind of the conversation I had the other day about, being a strong black man. Absolutely. I'm going to protect my community, my family, people in my neighborhood, whether you look like me or not, first and foremost, but not falling for the okie doke about getting, I know my laws, I know my rights. I'm a card carrying member of the ACLU. I plan to get more involved with more local political endeavors in the near future because we need more leaders that look like me, that think like me and you, to be making laws and enforcing laws. That's the only way it's going to change and get better. So I know this message probably gets old to some of you. I hope it's a revelation for others. I hope it's a revelation for everybody. We got to make the difference. And the difference is you sitting back, not saying nothing or doing anything is not helping. You're accepting the status quo one way or another. But what we got to do is teach everybody to be involved in some kind of way. We all have different gifts. We all bring something to the table. But you got to come to the table. You got to be a part of the game. You have to be. So celebrate diversity. It's getting better. I see it all the time. I see good people out here, black, white, Latino, Muslim, Haitian, African, Polish, German. That's what America's supposed to be about. And experiencing the greatness that everyone else has to offer. And the way it used to be is, yes, it was run by one group. And that's not going to happen anymore. So get used to it and embrace it. Because although I prefer a peaceful approach to everything, like Malcolm X said, by all means necessary, what has to happen will happen. That you can bet on.